Shooter games. How different can they really be? No matter how exciting new titles are, no matter how intriguing their mechanics or world, when was the last time a studio really came out of left field? Did something that wasn't just a twist on something we knew or a new coat of paint, however fresh it may be? When is someone gonna do something utterly, fundamentally different, like something we've never played before? Well, I think Embark Studios, they actually don't do that at all either. See, the weird thing is, being completely original is not as important as people think. Maybe you hit gold and maybe you don't. Some of the stuff that this team does, it gets a lot of credit for being completely original and new, but I actually think their approach is a lot more interesting than that. Because while their history needs no introduction, it's what they did with it that is increasingly rare in this industry. Now, Embark should be no stranger to anyone who's played a video game in the last year, because, well, I've followed Embark from the very beginning. This was not the game that got my attention. The Finals is, in basically every way, a completely different game. And I'm happy to say that today's video is in fact sponsored by Embark Studios. They were kind enough to bring me in to check out Season 10 of that game. There are some pretty serious changes. But when you bring up the Finals, the first word many think of is complexity. And, well, seeing how deep some of the hardcore fans get into it, I can understand why.
Try it again. Yeah, that works.
It's so good.
Yeah,
Finally.
SA-1216 is dead. SA-1216 is dead.
Finally, bro.
Now, any and all of this new stuff in Season 10 you can check out right now. The game is completely free. But while Embark's two games are utterly distinct in tone, visual style, gameplay loop, and even player perspective, they equally represent the studio's unique DNA of games development. A DNA that, when you understand where they come from, immediately begins to make sense. See, no individual element from a game that you love will necessarily work if you just throw it into another game. And inspiration, a studio's progeny, it's only as good as how said team decides to utilize it. The Finals, when I first saw trailers, looked insane to me. Completely destructible environments, 3v3v3v3, asymmetrical objective combat, abilities, physics. What is this game? But then I played it and went, oh, this is Battlefield 1. Not like the game as a whole in any way, obviously, but the player controller, the weapon handling. It was instantly viscerally recognizable as the DNA of something that I knew and loved. Embark was founded a few years ago by some of the core members of DICE, responsible for the golden era, if you will, of the Battlefield series. And you can immediately feel, or, well, hear it. But as a new studio, they had no interest in replicating what they knew. No, Embark take ingredients from an existing recipe, lay them out all on the table, and then twist them, mix them up until what results is a completely new flavor, but with underlying notes that you connect with immediately. So what is the Finals? At its core, it's a game show fantasy. You take on teams in various objective-based modes, all based around the idea of making it out with cash. It's a hero builder, if you will, rather than a hero shooter. You're a unique contestant, of course, so you choose a class type, light, medium, or heavy, and that class decides which abilities or weapons you can then apply to your loadout. This, together with the objective gameplay and destruction. Oh, the destruction. None of these individual elements are actually complex at all. You've got a loadout system, gadgets on cooldowns, snappy one-shot weapons, full auto guns rewarding tracking aim, and melee if you're a sick bastard who hates everything good in the world. But the combinations of these things, of team comp in tandem with map design, objective gameplay, and physics at the core of it all, it allows for skill expression and fun on a level that, well, there's a reason that many competitive FPS players consider the Finals to be best in class. But this only works because of a simple fact, that this plethora of mechanics in the Finals are all intuitive. Take basically anything in the game. Movement, say. Should I be able to climb this? I can climb this. Should I be able to destroy this? I can destroy this. Should this bounce? Yep, it bounces. That's one of the new abilities in the game, by the way, this little shockwave thing. And look, I don't even need to explain to you how it works. It just does exactly what you think it should. turrets, jump pads, grappling hooks, dashes, sniper rifle, SMG, crossbow. Yep, that's a new one too, and holy is it fun. But building systems the player could trust was key in building the finals, and part of this comes from the fact that basically everything in the game you've seen before.
Oh my god, wait, the double, I didn't even think about that. That's crazy.
Look how high up we are.
Wait, let's try this. I'm gonna retrieve mine. I get it in, yeah, there we go. Now I'm up here.
Nah, this is insane.
Mechanics, it doesn't matter if they're new or derivative. What matters is when the interplay between them feels like it encourages creativity. The moments that are unique in this game aren't placed there by the studio. They're allowed to happen, encouraged to happen by the interplay of carefully curated systems. You know, it's weird, right? It's almost as if that's the kind of thing this team, these people specifically, know better than anyone. It's not about any one mechanic, mode, or gameplay element, but how many are assembled to rely on one another that's unique. Not just about the finals, but this studio itself. It's increasingly rare to see a vision this specific in a competitive online FPS game, where an idea is iterated on with purpose until it's the best version of itself, and specifically itself, with as little compromise as possible. The Finals is a hero fantasy, an 80s game show fantasy, but it's also a platform for competitive, high-skill shooter gameplay. And for all those reasons, it looks, plays, and feels the way that it does. For example, destruction is a fundamental building block, pun intended, to the game's objective gameplay. And as ex-Battlefield developers, I can only imagine the magnetic urge to put that same groundbreaking system into their large-scale extraction shooter. But they didn't. And you know why? Because it's a different game. Vision is what makes both Ark and the Finals special on their own, and it's because the Finals exists that Ark can exist in the way that it does. But that doesn't mean that every game is gonna click for everyone. If there's another word that people like to associate with the Finals, it's underrated. Perhaps one of the most underrated shooter games of this last decade. See, the thing is, the Finals is hard. It's hard as a direct result of how meticulously constructed it is. It's the kind of game people just get really friggin' good at. But here's the thing. The fact of the Finals being built for high skill ceiling and player expression is, again, part of what allowed Ark to focus on its open sandbox, player communication-driven experience. PvP in Ark was never going to be the focus because, well, Embark already made a PvP shooter, and they made one of the best ones ever. But it's no secret that opacity, that perceived complexity, is one of the biggest things keeping new players from getting stuck into the Finals in the way that I know that they could. While the game's core mode is brilliant and incredibly unique in its own ways, something like Point Break, this linear large team objective game type, are exactly what the game needs, in my opinion. Something that just lets people play with mechanics with less stakes being put on their individual contribution. The Academy as well, a new feature coming in Season 10, will be a section of the game purely dedicated to teaching new players core fundamentals. Not just individual mechanics, but how to team play effectively, how to intelligently harness the game's many options. But that's the thing that makes this game stand out. You don't need to get good at one meta or master a specific hero or weapon. There's something in this game for literally any type of FPS player to connect with. And man, when they do, they can just truly have a blast with it. Years ago, core members of Infinity Ward, the studio behind Call of Duty, broke off to found Respawn Entertainment. They didn't just take what they knew, make another game with the best parts of COD, and call it a day. They made Titanfall, and the rest is history. Embark came from Battlefield, and while there's an animation here and a gadget there that you might absolutely know, the best devs take good ideas and use them as inspiration rather than a stencil. The thing that stands out to me most about this studio, their ability to iterate. Both these games began as a testbed for an idea, a fantasy, a vision. And over the years, through iteration, testing, through seeing how a myriad of building blocks could potentially fit together, that vision is the thing that shines through in the end. I mean, look at where Arc Raiders was a few years ago. The game was a shadow of what it's become. And with the success that game has seen, I think these guys are going to be around for a while. I'm Riloe and I like to talk about stuff that I think is cool. Subscribe if you haven't yet and you enjoyed this, and thanks to Embark Studios once again for supporting the channel on this video. They didn't ask me to reflect on their whole development like this, by the way. They were just kind enough to invite me to check out Season 10 of the finals, and well, as far as the game's concerned, you really do not need to take my word for it. The game is free. Just check it out yourself and see what you think, using my link, of course. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Happy spring, and I will talk to you very soon.